Dad hates my house and apparently expects me to take in my brother's children at some point.
I don't know if this is the right sub for this, but in this moment, as the only blood-related woman on my father's side of the family, it feels gendered. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. A few days ago, my dad came over to my house for the first time in quite a while. I've had a lot of renovations done since he last saw the place when we first moved in. I have a nervous system condition which, while very fortunate to be able to manage it in such a way that it usually doesn't impact my life most days out of any given month, can render certain simple tasks very difficult for me when I'm having a flare. It's also important, as part of managing my condition and maintaining my high level of function, to limit certain activities which can bring about a crash or a flare. My husband is also disabled. He has hypermobile EDS, so together we made a list of things we'd love to have as accommodations in the home we share, and we either DIY'd those things or found contractors to do them for us. I'm really happy with the results. I find that these accommodating renovations make my life a lot easier. I have fewer crashes, and overall more energy. My husband is elated with how much more functional he can be after we made these changes. My father isn't a fan. He thinks it all makes the house too weird. He's worried about the resale value, not that we're planning to sell anytime soon. He had a lot of comments when he came over. In fact, it was almost all he talked about. I kept trying to gently tell him that this is just what works for us and then divert the subject, but he was getting a bit worked up, which isn't really like him in those types of situations. The plan for his visit was he'd come over, meet my foster dog that he might adopt, and take the dogs for a walk, then get lunch. When I left him alone for a minute to go use the bathroom after we'd walked the dogs, I came back out and found that he'd attempted to pull one of our accommodating mechanisms out of the kitchen wall. He hadn't caused any functional damage, but he did cause aesthetic damage in that it will now need to be repainted over. I was shocked and kind of hysterical in my reaction, and I raised my voice at him when I saw what he was doing. I think I yelled, "What the fuck are you doing, Dad? What's your problem?" And he responded, "I just wanted to see if it was removable. Sorry, it's just too weird. It's too weird, it's just not going to work when Billy and Bobby move in with you." Billy and Bobby are my nephews, my brother's kids. I have never invited them to stay with me, let alone move in for any amount of time, and I've never been asked to do so. Even in the event that my brother and sister-in-law passed away in some tragic manner, to my knowledge, I should be very far down a very long list of people who could be asked to take those kids in before I would be asked. So I was pretty shocked my dad would say something like that out of the blue, and with so much frustrated emotion, about Billy and Bobby moving in, because there's no reason, to my knowledge, for anyone to think that would possibly be happening. I asked him to clarify repeatedly, but he just waved it off and told me to forget he said anything and he didn't want to talk about it. I pressed him and all he said was, "Well, honey, it's a massive house. You have room for 2 boys." When I asked him why he would even bring it up, though, and clarified that not only did I have absolutely no desire to host my nephews for a visit, let alone to move them in, he clammed up again and just said, "Forget I ever said anything." He apologized for damaging my home, immediately transferred a larger sum than necessary to me via Zelle to fix the scratch he'd made, and then took me out to lunch as we planned prior. The rest of the day with him was pretty normal, and I guess I was just a little shocked or something, because I didn't bring it up again. But now that it's been a few days, I can't get it out of my head, and I'm so annoyed. First of all, my dad hasn't ever been and would never be that aggressive about any decoration or renovation in my brother's homes. He just wouldn't. And I can't help but feel that he is less respectful of my home because I'm a woman, which sucks. But more upsetting/confusing, what the fuck was he talking about in terms of my nephews? Like, is my family conspiring in some way to move those kids in with me? It wouldn't be the first time that my family assumed I'd take care of those kids without asking me first. But in the past, it was just babysitting, and I have directly told everyone that even that is unacceptable. So I would be really shocked if my brother/Sil thought that was acceptable. I guess I'm just spinning out and don't really know what to do about it. I'm stuck between asking my father about it again first, or just reaching out to my brother directly.
And now, let's go through some important comments under the post and the author's replies. They add a lot more context to this story.
Comment number 1. Is there something wrong with your brother that he can't raise his own kids? Author's reply, no, nothing like that. As far as I know, my brother isn't planning to move his kids out of his home at all. They're just difficult, a bit delayed, and also very entitled because they've been enabled a lot. In the past, the family helped out heavily with childcare because my brother has a demanding job, and my sister-in-law struggles being alone with the kids. When I lived with my dad, I became a big part of that system. I ended up taking on way more responsibility for those kids than I would have ever agreed to, mostly because it wasn't my house, so I didn't get to decide whether they were brought over or not. But even then, I managed to set some boundaries. I made it clear I wouldn't take care of them on demand, and after a few firm conversations, that was mostly respected. Comment number 2. I'd try talking to your dad, but if that doesn't work, maybe ask your brother. That's a really strange thing to say unless he knows something. Author's reply. It really is incredibly strange. Not only do I not want those kids living with me, but I also assume my brother wouldn't want that either. And the biggest reason is safety. I've been dealing with a stalker for years. She has actually threatened to harm my nephews. After that, I completely distanced myself. I stopped picking them up from school, and the threats toward them stopped. Right now, I'm trying to take legal action, but nothing is finalized yet. And even the idea of those kids living with me makes me anxious. I'm worried they could become targets again or that things could escalate. I genuinely cannot imagine a situation where my family would think it's a good idea for those kids to move in with me. Comment number 3. Even in an emergency, it's weird that your dad is thinking about this. Author's reply. Even if there was an emergency, I should not be first on that list. Yes, I'm the only younger female relative on that side of the family, but my brother and his wife have a massive support system. I'm talking dozens of people, so it's honestly baffling to me how this could ever come down to me taking those kids in under any circumstances. Comment number 4. My guess is your brother might be getting divorced and they're planning to dump the kids on you. Author's reply. Honestly, I feel like an idiot for not even considering that possibility. It's not like they have an obviously bad marriage, but their dynamic is definitely a bit strange, and I guess I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, thank you for that perspective. But either way, it's a hard no from me. Comment number 5. You should text your family that you're worried about your dad. His behavior sounds off. Author's reply. I think I'll do something like that, but over a call. I want to hear their reactions in real time. Because my dad has a habit of triangulating communication, telling different people different versions of things to get the outcome he wants. For example, he might tell me my brother is really upset and even willing to change plans for me, when my brother never said that. And then tell my brother that I'm hurt and wish he'd change plans, when I never said that either. So we both end up adjusting our behavior based on something that was never actually said, and only realize years later that we were both manipulated. Comment number 6. Could this be related to his age or some kind of mental issue? Author's reply. He's in his 70s, but he's still working and doing fine. I even asked my other brother, who works with him every day, if he's noticed any decline. And he said my dad seems sharp as ever, but he does have some history. After my parents' divorce, he was diagnosed with OCD, but he rejected the diagnosis. So I can't completely rule out something like that. Comment number 7. This could be a hidden infection affecting his cognition. Author's reply. Oh, wow. My dad has actually had those before. I had no idea they could be silent and affect cognition like that. Comment number 8. It sounds like he doesn't accept your disability. Author's reply. Yeah, he basically doesn't. He only acknowledged it briefly when my symptoms were severe and I couldn't work. But once I started my own business, he went right back to thinking I'm just being dramatic. Additional important detail about the stalker. This is someone the author used to be friends with. She became fixated on the author's husband and started seeing the author as the enemy. And yes, the father does take this seriously, because this woman has also stalked him and even damaged his property. Update next day. I talked to my brother on the phone about the situation, and he expressed that he had absolutely no idea why our father would imply that Billy and Bobby would need to move in with me at any point. He seemed genuinely surprised and to have no clue what the hell Dad was talking about. He claims to have absolutely never expressed anything like that to our dad. I believe him. I asked him if there was any possible reason at all that Dad would think that I'd need to take in my nephews. Like, is there some problem Dad thinks he is pre-solving without consulting either of us? Is there an illness or impending divorce or anything I don't know about? My brother assured me that there's nothing like that going on and that, as I assumed, I, of course, wouldn't even be near the top of the list of permanent caregivers even if something was going on, because he knows I run 2 businesses out of my house and also just am not up for taking his kids in unless I am the absolute last safe resort. Both of us are in agreement, as is our other oldest brother, that Dad generally doesn't seem to have any other signs that we've noticed of declining cognitive function, like at all. But since this was such a strange outburst, we're still concerned that this is just the earliest sign. My brother, Billy and Bobby's dad, is going to talk to our dad about it ASAP and see what he says or what explanation he can give. Then we'll go from there. The issue that we're both aware of is that my dad, while a loving father and good man to many, is a bit of a liar and a lot of a manipulator. He has a lot of signs of OCD and gets fixated on things, then tries to manipulate to get his way with his fixation. He means well, but he has been known to be full of shit and to have his own strange agendas that don't have much to do with anyone else's wants or needs. So unfortunately, my brother and I, and my brother has volunteered to go first LOL, are going to have to confront him by essentially saying, "Dad, it's really important that you're honest about whether you are confused or intentionally lying/triangulating/manipulating, because that's the difference between us freaking out about your health versus us just understanding that sometimes you lie to push your agenda, but your brain is fine." Thank you to everyone who gave me feedback here. You've all been so sweet and supportive, except that one guy who, for some reason, was dead convinced that I didn't pay for my own home and commented several times and DM'd me about it. I did pay for my home, and it's solely in my name. You weirdo. I'll keep y'all updated on what my brother and I figure out going forward. New update 8 months later. I know this was forever ago, but life has been lifing pretty hard since then. The OG post and first update, which I made at the top of the original, are in my post history. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for your concern and overall support. This sub is full of such lovely and helpful people. So many of you left tremendously helpful comments and sent me such kind messages as well. So I guess I'll start by saying that my dad doesn't have dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. If anything, he is perhaps experiencing a very slight cognitive decline due to age, but only insofar as his typical lifelong nonsense becoming a little more pronounced, and he's not really as slick as he thinks he is or as good at manipulating as he's used to being. Basically, he's used to being able to get away with a lot more manipulation of his kids than he's able to get away with now. I don't even think the onus for this particular episode of his is directly an age thing at all, though. I think it's a situational thing. After I talked to my dad multiple times, conferred with my brothers after they talked to my dad multiple times, and after we basically had to tell our father, "Hey, if you're not totally upfront about what's going on, we have to assume that you need to see a doctor, and we're not just going to drop this like we usually drop uncomfortable things in this family," I think I have figured out what was up. Ever since I moved out of my father's house, leaving an empty bedroom and office space in a house that already had a designated bedroom for the kids, because they had a lot sleepovers there, my sister-in-law has been obsessively pushing the idea that my nephews should start living summers and school breaks at my dad's house. I knew she'd brought this up a few times, but I didn't know how adamant she was being because this push entirely took place after I had moved. My dad doesn't live far from my brother and SIL's place, 15 minutes away, so it's not like they'd be having some special summer experience in a new location. I think she just wants them out of her house for the summer LOL. My nephews love staying at Grandpa's because my dad has never been a real caregiver, not even when we were kids, so there are literally no rules, no bedtimes, no limit on sweets, no parental controls on the TV, no limit on screen times, no one checking if they brush their teeth, or making them shower, or do chores, or change their clothes. Zero supervision over them making messes or doing dumb shit, etc. So of course when their mom asked them, "Do you want to spend the summer at Grandpa's?" Do you want to go ask Grandpa if he'll let you stay the summer with him? They went feral over the idea, and my dad was immediately put in the position of either agreeing or disappointing his two grandkids and saying no. My dad hates saying no to family outright because he never wants family to say no to him at all. So he agreed, of course. My dad agreed to this last summer, but even with the help of a daily babysitter, who apparently quit halfway through, and I assume it's either because my dad made her uncomfortable, which is a whole different kettle of fish, or because those kids are super entitled, and even though the kids are getting more and more independent, it was torturous and exhausting for him. He never wanted to do that again. But, and my dad didn't say this is me applying what I know about him in general, my father is addicted to being the hero of the family. He needs us all to need him, and he needs us all to think he's great. Plus, he has a massive ego about defying the idea of aging and being ultra-energetic and healthy, etc., and not an old man. He could not bring himself to admit that he doesn't have the energy for those kids, and he didn't want to say no because he doesn't want to normalize anyone saying no to anyone in this family. My father thrives on no one being allowed to have boundaries or say no, but it's now also become a prison he's built himself into. So, he was planning to pawn the kids off on me next summer. He was going to agree to take them and then bring them to my house. And, in his words, ease into a smooth transition from his house to mine. From the sounds of it, and also just knowing my dad, I assume he was going to beg me to take the kids for a single day, drop them off with overnight bags and say, "Didn't you say they could sleep over?" Then make up a ton of excuses as to why they needed to stay at my house for longer and longer until he ran out the summer. Personally, I know this wouldn't have worked. I'd literally be dropping the kids off at their own damn house or calling the cops within 24 hours. But I don't think my dad understands just how badly his plan would have panned out, because I used to be a massive doormat. I think he truly believes he could manipulate the situation, and me, into working out in his favor. He apparently asked SIL already if it was okay, and she said yes, but she never even asked me about it or brought it up the whole time we were all wondering what my dad was on about. She only confirmed this after my dad finally admitted to his scheme, which is wild because she had just stood there and said nothing about it while my brothers and I were trying to figure out if our dad was insane. And to be honest, I think SIL knew the whole time that my dad was going to fully pawn her kids onto me, and she didn't want to say anything and risk having to have her children gasp living in her own house all year. I truly don't know what she thought was about to happen. And when I asked her, "So you didn't think you should even confirm this with me?" she swore that she remembered talking to me about it, which, no, girl, you did not. I would never agree to that. My brother is fairly livid with his wife. He generally hates how reliant she is on outside help to raise the kids when he's already such an involved dad and they literally have multiple forms of paid childcare. And we are all becoming increasingly less patient with my father's triangulation bullshit. Like, I'm in my 30s, my older brothers are both pushing 50, and it's insane that he's still scheming and claiming it's all in the name of what's best for the family, because we all have our own families now. But he acts like we are bickering children who he is having to manage in order to keep the family together. Extra insane because my brothers and I were not children at the same time. When really he's just obsessively trying to maintain his preferred status quo in a reality where it makes less and less sense to maintain. This was all so foolish, and I'm truly annoyed. Like I said, I've had a lot going before and since his initial outburst. A lot of good things that needed my attention and some really hard things too. And instead of getting to be more fully present in what was going on in my own life, I had my focus split and pulled away by worrying that my father was potentially suffering from neurological issues and refusing to be seen for it. My brothers and I all just wasted so much time on this, all for this to be some stupid bullshit about his pride and him applying his own preferences to our lives again. Anyway, thank you again to everyone who gave me good insight and advice. I really appreciate y'all being here when I was spinning out about it.
Comments and author replies. Part 2.
Comment number 1. I was actually thinking about you earlier this week. Honestly, just reading this made me mad. I'm really sorry you're dealing with all this. Anyway, enjoy finally having peace in your own home. Author's reply. Thank you, we are. By the way, My sister-in-law's apology was basically offering to bring the kids over for a fun day at my house. I told her straight up that after everything that happened, I don't want the kids over at all for the foreseeable future. She's furious. Example of the dad's triangulation. When I was in my early 20s and my brother was in his mid-40s, our dad managed to create a conflict between us that took years to fix. And all of it just because he wanted my brother to work more and wanted me to pick up his kids from school every day. He could have just said it directly. I want you to work more, and I want you to pick up his kids so he doesn't have to interrupt his day. But instead, he created this complicated telephone game, which ended with my brother and I genuinely hating each other and feeling deeply insulted. And we only realized years later that we had both been manipulated. Author adds, my brother is actually a very involved father, and they already have daily paid childcare. The problem is that my sister-in-law is constantly trying to get the kids out of the house and off her hands. She acts like spending even one full week with her kids, even with childcare, is some kind of unbearable burden. I completely understand my brother's frustration, because every time he turns around, his wife has come up with yet another plan to send the kids somewhere else. If there's a snow forecast, she rushes to drop them off with relatives so they can get stuck there. During COVID, she was desperately trying to send them to her parents in another state, literally driving all day and overnight just to get them there so they'd be stuck with her parents during lockdown. She flat out refuses to be alone with her children and is constantly looking for ways to send them somewhere else. Comment number 2. Wow, your SIL really sucks. A couple of weeks in the summer is one thing, but the whole summer with a no-rules grandpa is just a disaster waiting to happen. Kids need structure and proper nutrition. Authors reply, yeah. And honestly, it's not really my place, but I've always been shocked by how much she pushes for the kids to stay with my dad. Because he has basically passed down his own disordered eating habits to them. My dad is severely obese and addicted to junk food and binge eating, and now my nephews are picking up the same patterns. They were already flagged as significantly overweight at age 9, despite being fairly active, and it's only gotten worse. They hide food, sneak it, they rack up lunch debt at school, not because of money issues, but because they buy a ton of snacks, and they binge until they feel sick. I don't understand how she can prioritize getting the kids out of her house over actually helping them develop a healthier relationship with food. My brother and I both struggled with serious eating disorders because of the environment our dad created. My brother still, at almost 50, relapses into bulimia. We both ended up hospitalized multiple times because of it. He told me it genuinely makes him feel awful when the kids are left with our dad, because he feels like he's failing them. But his wife sets these things up behind his back, then throws fits, stops talking to him, or threatens to leave if he doesn't agree to send the kids away. And this whole situation was kind of eye-opening for him because she just stood there silently for months while we were all genuinely worried that our dad might have something seriously wrong, like a brain tumor, author adds. At the same time, I do feel sympathy for her. When they first told me they were pregnant, my immediate thought was, oh my God, she's not fit to be a mother. That sounds harsh, but she really is one of the most fragile and anxious people I've ever met. She completely shuts down over even the smallest stress. Like full shutdown, can't function at all. She always wanted one child, a girl, calm and quiet, like she was, and like most of us were growing up. Instead, she had twin boys with severe hyperactivity and attention issues. That was basically her worst-case scenario. Honestly, sometimes I think if they had done IVF and she'd had one calm daughter, she wouldn't be so desperate to constantly offload her kids. About the nephews, I genuinely feel bad for them. They've been spoiled to the point where it's actually damaging them. Now they're getting bullied and socially rejected at school because they act like entitled, bratty, overly emotional kids. It's painful to watch how the entire family, not just my sister-in-law, has either actively encouraged or passively allowed them to become worse and worse over time. And the irony is, my dad is shocked by their behavior. He keeps saying it came out of nowhere, but to me, it feels like I've been watching a slow-motion train wreck for years.
And that's where this story comes to an end. Make sure to leave a comment and tell me what you think about this situation. Who do you think is right here, and who's not? Have you ever experienced something similar in your own family, a conflicts, manipulation, situations like this? And what advice would you give to the author? Thanks for listening all the way to the end. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.